everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is David Cerna. I'm an instructional consultant here on the C.A.L team. We are so excited to have our LinkedIn Learning workshop today, which is a spotlight on Dr. Andrew Carson here at the University of the District of Columbia. He is Data and Assessment Manager with Causes. We also have Joe Moore, our LinkedIn Learning consultant here. So without further ado, let's start. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I can give an introduction of myself, and Dr. Carson can do the same. Joe Moore, LinkedIn Learning consultant here, and I work with higher education institutions across North America, over 100 that I work with. So I get to see where we want to push student learner outcomes, what we want to do with faculty and staff in terms of like learning and development. And David and Dr. Carson and I were having a conversation about, how could LinkedIn Learning be best used? And we had some really powerful conversations that I was really excited about. And that's just the origins of how it started. But I want to pass it over to Dr. Carson to give his introduction and just let you know what we're going to talk about today.
Hi, and I've been at UDC since fall of 2020. And it's been a really great place to work. I've really enjoyed working at UDC and getting also to know some of what C.A.L's offering. It's really interesting innovations they're doing. And I've been a LinkedIn Learning user for a few years, but not until I think C.A.L got the whole contract set up where we all had access to it at UDC did I become, I guess, what I call a heavy user. And my original background, I got a PhD in counseling psychology from UT Austin a long time ago. And then I've had kind of a mixed academic and assessment and research career, about half of it in test publishing, but more than half of it in higher education too. And I'm really interested in how do people get to be really good at things. It's kind of my enduring interest. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation with you. I mean, it was a really good discussion we had earlier, and I don't know how much you're going to go into that, but it can just kind of opens up, I think, interesting possibilities both for UDC and thinking about how this tool that you all made at LinkedIn could be developed.
Yeah, and I'll give everybody an agenda, but we'll follow it loosely. Wanted to talk about Dr. Carson's experience with LinkedIn Learning, how he sees it fitting into professional development, and how you can leverage it yourself to get the most out of LinkedIn Learning. I'll give you some demos, and if we end up getting into a really great discussion, this entire deck is going to be available for you. So I will put that in the chat pod. And this will give you some ideas on how you can use LinkedIn Learning in terms of sharing it and getting other folks to giving other folks access to content and even curating content as well. So I'll have some support and resources for you. And then at the end of this presentation, if you want to just fast forward to the end, and let's say that you want to have a one-on-one with me, maybe you want to launch your own learning and development program, you have some student learner outcomes that you want to hit, or perhaps you're looking to develop some things for yourself. You can meet with me one-on-one. I have my calendar open to you. Feel free to take any time on that and we can work on it together. So as far as the experience that you've had, Dr. Carson, with LinkedIn Learning, I created a word cloud just off of our conversation that we had. There was so much that we touched on, but this is the word cloud. So I would love to just hear your experience that you've had with LinkedIn Learning. You've mentioned that you've, I think you're up to 102 courses now.
Right, 102. 102. Yeah, it's just so easy. Just like Lay's potato chips. You eat one and then there's this other one, and then there's another one, and I figured out a way just to sort of work it in casually in my life where it's not an imposition. Like it doesn't take up work time. But I use it when I'm commuting, and I use it, if I have just a few minutes here and there, I'll pull up my phone and work through a course. Some courses, the more IT or data science-y type courses, I really do need to sit down and look at it and think about it. But most of it, I don't. You can do it as you move. So I found it to be really good for just building out things that I'm interested in. Anywhere from exploring to just things that I just want to build up as more complementary skills to what I currently have. and just to explore, am I interested in, this other thing? And I found a couple of things that I've become interested in, mainly through these courses that I hadn't realized I was interested in. So it's just been a good professional development experience. And I can tell you more about how I use it, kind of as we go, but whatever you like. And do you want me just to kind of dive into a little the side segue, or how do you want to take this?
Yeah, sure. You have some great slides here next, which I think give you some good visualizations, but
Okay.
I am going to poke and ask a few questions here and there about how you pick your next courses and things like that.
Yeah. When this is, I think, quick to go through some of the background. I mean, some theory, I think I'm interested in theory and psychology theory and learning theory. So one of the things that got me interested in professional development and adulthood is this kind of a chart here. And this is related to data on different ability tests. And this history of research goes back to early 20th century. And what people were interested in doing is looking at over the lifespan, if you look at abilities in absolute terms, not age normed, but in terms of kind of an absolute level of ability. And you break abilities into different types of abilities. Where are the skills and how do they develop over the lifespan? And so what you find, can you see my cursor with this? Or you probably can't. But if you look at all of the abilities that are peaking on the left, QR, this quantitative reasoning, working memory, visual spatial, fluid reasoning abilities, all those that peak between age 20, the age goes across left to right, 10 to 80. And then there's sort of a scale that goes up here on the vertical axis. They all peak. All these, they call them fluid abilities. They all peak between about age 20 and age 30, which kind of fits your stereotype of, they've done research on the age when people often make big discoveries in math, for example, between age 20 and 30. And this is the period where, as a young adult, you tend to just be rock stars in just how fast you can think, and the ability to think spatially, ability to do a lot of interesting juggling of information because your working memory is so good. Then as you get older, these fluid abilities begin to go down. It's just one of those unfortunate consequences of being a human being as you get older. And by the time, and I'm 61, so by the time you're about where I'm at and you're at that age 60, you notice all these are beginning to decrease. In fact, by the time you're 60, your fluid abilities are about where you were when you were about 10 years old in just horsepower terms, which is kind of fascinating when you think about it. But what continues to go up across your lifespan is that one line up there that has KN, that's knowledge or is type of crystallized ability. So the one saving grace of getting older is your crystallized abilities get better. And as you get older than that, just on average, based on the research, there can be other things that happen to the adult brain as you get older. I mean, you can have health problems, you can have other issues, but there's no reason why outside of those health problems, your crystallized ability, your knowledge ever decreases. So as you get past age 30, sort of the way to continue growing and being competitive as an adult worker is through knowledge building activities, building a crystallized knowledge. And so professional development is key and central to that because you will lose fluid abilities, but you will not lose your knowledge. So if you want to be competitive as a worker, you've got to keep focusing on building that knowledge. And people have championed this idea again and again as a reason for doing ongoing professional development, for doing lifelong learning and higher education. It's a very important thing. And there's good scientific basis for thinking this. It's not just a huckster sale on the part of LinkedIn Learning or professional development providers in general. There is, if you don't, I mean, I don't know if it's true to say if you don't use it, you'll lose it because you probably keep all the crystallized knowledge that you've had as you get older. But if you want to remain competitive, if you want to, build your opportunities, you've got to focus on the building crystallized knowledge. Okay, so that's like a lot of my interest in professional development. And I've tried a lot of different things over the years. I've done workshops, I've done read books and read articles. I've taken courses on Coursera, a lot of them. But I think of all the things I've done, I think LinkedIn Learning provides sort of the biggest breadth of opportunity to learn things and fit them into your professional development scheme. To me, it's like sort of a baseline layer. And then anything else that you're not getting out of LinkedIn Learning, then you've got to think about, well, how would you add beyond that? And that's separate from how you would use it in a course. I mean, how you use it, of course, I think I've seen what you have planned for the rest of the discussion. And some of that's maybe based on our discussion, some of it may be based on things you already had before, but there's a lot of things you can do as an instructor to weave in these as resources into your courses. But in terms of just professional development, to me, it's a matter of time on task. You can go to the next slide if you want. Yeah. So time on task is, I mean, I think what I've seen is just 10 minutes a day. That's a blurb you hear sometimes people talking about from LinkedIn Learning. Okay, I think I do about 30, but people are going to vary. I'm not a LinkedIn Learning. I mean, I just do it because I enjoy it, but other people might have other things going on in their lives and they don't want to sit around for 30 minutes a day looking at LinkedIn Learning. But yeah, some time is good. I think I get through about 3 courses a week, typically. Some take longer. 30 minutes a day works for me though. And when I've had direct reports, I've encouraged them to do ongoing professional development as part of their regular work, just because that helps me negotiate with them what I want them to build around in terms of skills. Provided my LinkedIn profile there, and if you're interested, and I'd be happy to connect. But in terms of, rationale for this, there's a lot of organizations that have built in dedicated time during a week to cross-train and train. You always hear people talk about cross-training, but okay, well, how much time are you going to put into it? I think I remember reading that a lot of the U.S. Marines training, when they're not actually engaged in the field, they might be cross-training for 2.5, 3 hours a week. So I think that's not at all unusual. And I think that's a pretty good, and people talking about the great resignation or staff turnover, the best protection against staff turnover, if you've got an organization that has a lot of turnover and the loss of skill, is cross-training or training in general. I mean, let's see, a heavy focus on this really helps you survive as a unit. Okay, next slide. Now, here's, how did I do what I've done over the past year? So that's when I think since about March. I started with a few topics that I knew would be useful. I made I wrote it down, put it in my CV, and have just been dropping stuff in as I do it. And a lot of it's been LinkedIn Learning courses. Some have been Coursera courses. I'd say 80% of it's been LinkedIn Learning courses though. And some of it's just been readings I'm doing. Some topics are not well covered by anything except just talking to people who are experts. So for me, that's been volunteer services and urban agriculture. Now, I'm really surprised in LinkedIn Learning, there's not much with volunteer services because that's a hot thing now. And then the things I have looked at a lot are leadership management, computer data science. These are all covered really well in LinkedIn Learning. Other business, graphic design, there's some great graphic design content I found on LinkedIn Learning. Learning instruction, like there's a lot there on LinkedIn Learning. I think because people who are into learning instruction, they want to share what they do through LinkedIn Learning, and what they're doing is building LinkedIn Learning courses. So there's a lot of people there who can share that information. And then some stuff on sustainability, that's important in causes, the college I'm in at UDC. So anyway, that's kind of the curriculum that I had over the past year. And then yours is going to be different. So, I mean, one thing I've encouraged other people to do at causes is build out your plan. So when you do your annual plan that you're going to be talking about with your manager every year, well, make your list of topics that you're planning to cover. Make the list of topics you're planning to cover in your professional development, and make sure you're sort of mindful of going out and searching for related content that you might be interested in learning. You could start with LinkedIn Learning. You could look at other sources. And you basically fill that in over that year. And it's a pretty compelling thing to share with your manager at the end of the year. Say, hey, I've done this over the past year. They go, what? Yeah, it's just being systematic. You capture what you do. If you can't measure it, it's not there. But if you can just write it down, you're measuring it. So it goes really well in your annual, the form you have to turn in every year to show your progress. And next slide. And that probably just about wraps it up. So, how does this help you to do things? Well, it builds on and updates any prior academic study that you've done, any formal degree programs. because life goes on, knowledge changes, what's known changes. You couple it with practice and it can lead to expertise. And there's a researcher named Anders Ericsson who talks about expertise, how people become experts. You can't just do LinkedIn Learning. You have to actually try putting it into practice. So one thing I found that's really helpful is when I know that there's an opportunity to practice something that's coming up, I'll take a course related to that topic. That's helped me get through a couple of difficult meetings this year and stood me in good stead. So you learn something and you apply it pretty quickly. So you're practicing and you maybe get some feedback on that. You can increase your vocational identity through these courses because it lets you know more about who you are and what you're all about, at least in terms of work. And vocational identity is highly correlated with job satisfaction. So I think taking LinkedIn Learning courses may actually make people more satisfied in their jobs because of this vocational identity idea. I think it's the clearest way you can prepare for whatever you think your next role might be, whether you're a student or working. And so that's one way it might help students who are in programs because they're sort of helping learn more about their vocational identity and how that might tie in with different job roles and in ways that might be more directly related to those job roles than a lot of what's in their courses. But it complements what's in their courses. And then I think for professionals, people who are in the careers, I think it's career insurance. It improves your career resilience should market forces ever change. Because guess what? Market forces will change. Market forces always change. You've got to always be thinking ahead, not necessarily in an anxious or panicked way, but if you just keep learning and you can document you doing that, and it just gives you a language for talking about change in a way that you won't be able to do if you don't do this. And so it's kind of career insurance that way. That's all I had to say on that. And based on kind of our earlier discussion. Oh, people are asking questions.
Yeah, I was going to say, I see some good questions.
I think you have so much good stuff, Joe, coming up and talking about how do you apply this to help students. And sure, I think you drive it. But I think one thing I'd say before you get into it is the one suggestion I think I had for Joe earlier was in all of our syllabi for courses, you have your identified learning outcomes you want students to have on those courses. So not all of those learning outcomes are going to map, sort of like the table that I showed you earlier, over to things that are available in LinkedIn Learning, but some of those learning outcomes will map. And for those that do map, if you can identify what those might be, then if the student studies that course ahead of time, that takes that course on LinkedIn Learning ahead of time, it's like an advanced organizer. So everything then they learn in the course is going to be that much easier to have hooks to hang on because of that little bit they learned in that LinkedIn Learning course is kind of a fun introduction. And then everything else they learn and practice in that course is going to just hook on better. So my guess is that you more quickly and better learn the other learning outcomes that you'd have in that course when you have that sort of mapped onto a LinkedIn Learning course. But again, a lot of things you're learning in a regular course are not going to be in LinkedIn Learning. That's okay.
In my experience as a student, before I worked at LinkedIn, my job was in learning and development. And I found myself in an industry where I was definitely the newest on the team. I had the least amount of experience. And at the time, we had a product called lynda.com. And when I jumped in to see all the content for learning and development that I could jump into, I jumped right on it. So it helped me professionally in that way. But I also went to school for learning and development too. And I still found myself in that boat where I needed to listen again. I needed to practice again. I needed all the practice I could get. So in class, I would use it. And also, I would find that I would want to build projects that I was passionate about, but I didn't quite have the skills that I needed. So these may be considered remedial skills that I was filling. I essentially learned to fill some of the skill gaps that I had as a student because I started going to LinkedIn, or at the time, lynda.com, and I started filling some of those skill gaps. So I think if we're able to help students connect to content that can help them with remedial skills, or even some, like Dr. Carson said, you'll find something that has a hook on it and it'll pull them back and it'll bring them back to LinkedIn Learning.
We just wanted to really quickly, there are two questions in the chat. I had a question, but there are questions in the chat. I didn't want to jump in line.
Yeah,
and
go for it.
I can read them out to you just so that I know. The one is as it relates to tutoring.
I have a It definitely can be used in tutoring. We got a couple different ways that you can use this in tutoring. So I do have a pre-curated, and I'm actually going to jot it down because I could share it with you. I have some pre-curated lists to share that are just some common topics that we cover that may be in the space of commonly requested tutoring materials. Now, like Dr. Carson said, we don't hit every area as far as, we're not going to tie to every single student learner outcome. However, we do have some good foundational courses. There's also some really great new features within LinkedIn Learning that tutoring centers could leverage. So if you want to host your own content, your own videos, you can pop them on LinkedIn Learning. It'll be available just to your institution alone. So it'll be kind of in its own little walled garden. So you could have tutors post videos for students and share them at scale as needed. That's one option. And then, of course, just the content that's on LinkedIn Learning as well.
One thing I'd throw out there, thinking about tutoring, you can have a course which is often half an hour to over an hour long, but you can also do searches. And you can find little snippets of things. So if you're tutoring on a particular topic, that can be helpful. Like one point I wanted to brush up on a statistical method with SPSS, and I just went and looked at a 5-minute snippet of a much bigger 5-hour workshop, and I got one I needed really, really quickly. So if you're doing one part of a tutoring session, might be just a 5-minute snippet here or 2-minute snippet here. And one other thing I didn't mention that I'm going to be hoping to do is I have a new staffer coming in relatively soon. And what I'm hoping to do is to build a customized LinkedIn learning path that would have, particular LinkedIn learning courses, but also other documents that I could maybe bring in. I got to find out how to do that are part of that very customized, not general public learning path. So I got to find out if that's even possible.
That sounds fascinating. And I think it was a slide right before this where you have it kind of mapped out. I think the more, when students come into our institution, we have our curriculum maps at the institutional level, but then this is kind of like a more granular kind of, I really do think there could be some magic created here in terms of making it more guardrails and more intentionality. So I really think that that's great. I have a question for you when it comes to this. Excuse me, I have a sick child that I'm here with. There is when programs engage in, I thought of this as you were speaking earlier, Drew. As programs engage in program review, a lot of times you're basing it off of the existing outcomes, right, and objectives for your program. But something you mentioned made me think, and I'm thinking out loud about this around, the workforce needs, right, change rapidly, as we both know. So just wanted you to speak to how you could see this informing kind of edging beyond those kind of strict and stale and sometimes outdated parameters that you would be evaluating yourself on in a program review to kind of lead to some type of I don't know if it's transformation or some type of improvement beyond those boundaries that are more static or a little bit more fixed. Sorry, does that make sense? The question.
Joe, do you want to cover that, or do you want me to jump in?
Sure. I have some ideas, and hopefully I'm on point here. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll make sure this is big enough for you to see. I'm going to show you what some of the admin tools are. This is a demo account, so you'll have a different instance of LinkedIn Learning. But what we can do is we can show you skills. So you can see skills develop in real time with admin access on LinkedIn Learning. And I'll just give you some pointers here. So I'm in the admin portal, and I'll highlight this tab called Insights. And under Insights, there are a few different options. There's this overview of what you see, but I really like this. It's brand new. It's the skills dashboard, and admins can pin skills. They can browse skills. This updates in near real time. I think there may be, a 24-hour delay. But these, you can,
that's like the outline that I had. Here's the skills I'm trying to develop.
Right.
Yeah. That's sweet, because then you could map that, but at a higher level. Yeah.
And it's within 24 hours, right? It's real time, fluid, and program. You know how it is with academic programs or anything of that sort. We move a little bit more like snail's pace when it comes to kind of recalibrating. So it is interesting. So this is definitely And I'll be quiet. I want to continue to hear more what you
Carl,
have to say.
Carl, have you
It's a
seen
really good
MC
question.
Burning Glass? I mean, based on your question, have you seen this company? It was Burning Glass, and they merged with MC. But MC
Heard
Burning
of Burning
Glass,
Glass, but no, I haven't.
we don't have it at UDC. It's a great system.
Okay.
And they can go out there and they do two things. One, they sift through lots of CVs and resumes to find out what's in the resumes content wise, and then they can then say, you know, where around the country different skills are more in demand, and then you can use the data to map it onto what academic programs are offered in different places that map onto those same sets of skills. So you can actually use
That's
their
awesome.
system to look at increases in skills in your area where you might have campuses. And you can use that to help identify what might be opportunities for new academic programs, which is fascinating. But if you had the cross-link from the skills
Yes.
over to LinkedIn Learning, then you could then go tell students, here's the trends and these skills in your area and how they relate to jobs. And here are some ways to get these in our present courses, and then how to supplement what's in the present courses with what you get through other sources like LinkedIn Learning. That would be pretty cool.
That would be really cool. That's very exciting for me. It's real time. What's almost within 24 hours needs that becomes more flexible and adaptable, because as we know in higher ed, our processes and procedures haven't caught up, and they will never be able to move as fast as the market, right, or the industry. So I really, we'll have to talk a little bit more about that, Drew, in terms of and then think about how we can make our internal review process a little bit more malleable and flexible so that it can really inform and help students in this way, you know, versus it being something that's kind of like, you know, as soon as you get there, it's outdated, right? You know,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in a funny way, LinkedIn Learning essentially is a co-curriculum development kind of tool.
Right.
Because
Yes,
especially if you
yes.
have the skills information I hadn't seen before that Jojo showed, like that
Mhm,
if you're an instructor or you're a curriculum specialist or you're, you know, like a dean of a college and you want to emphasize a particular, you know, thing, you might be able to say, hey, you know, take advantage of these things. Suggesting to students.
A fantastic topic. I'll share with you some tools as well. We have one called Skills Explorer, and I can do just a short demonstration of how it works. This is free. You can go to, I'll drop this in the chat, but essentially what it'll do is it'll look at skills that learners may have, and it'll look at what you can do a few different things. I think the intention here is that you look at skills that are common across different domains. But what you can do is I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here. So not to nauseate you with my scrolling, but you can look at skills in a geographic area too. So you can select a city, you can search for job titles, and you can look for similarities in different areas. So this is a free tool that I'll give you. I think it helps to have different tools in your toolkit. But LinkedIn has a ton of data for you that you can tap into. So if there's any questions that you ever have about data, I'll be sure to pop my email in the chat, and it's actually in the deck too. Or you can just meet with me too. That's fine. Let me know what you want to meet about, and I'll try to bring some data.
And
present.
Joe, it's more organized by geographic area.
Yeah.
So that's similar to what MC Burning Glass has, coming from a totally different perspective.
Yeah, I thought you might like it. It's something fun to play around with. I'll be honest with you. I play around with this quite often with career services. So,
sure.
And I'm trying to help students find, you know, maybe they haven't quite found that thing that they're passionate about yet. And we've all done odd jobs. So what we can do is we can analyze skills that have overlap with different careers. So this is a really cool tool to use with that, but it also I like to use it as a skills inventory as well.
So you have the ability to, is it like an assessment that people would complete? Say, I'm interested in these following things.
Yeah, great question. So this is pulling in data from all of LinkedIn. This is something I should have covered first. This is analyzing all of the data on LinkedIn, the skills that are tied to everyone's professional profiles, and it lets you slice and dice them. When you type in a career, so that you can do this a couple different ways. You can say, hey, I was a food server. What are the skills that I have? What are the overlap areas? It can show you skills to build if you want to move from one area to next. And these are links to LinkedIn Learning courses, actually. So when you click on something here, it links you to LinkedIn. The skill assessment element would just be the skills that are tied to LinkedIn learning, and then those would go to your profile.
So are you getting the skills associated with the job by doing kind of an AI-based analysis of all of the resumes that are essentially logged into LinkedIn?
I don't know the exact secret sauce there. However, what I can show you is, so let's say, for example, we have this food server position and the skills to build. You can when you click on the skills to build, it'll open up LinkedIn Learning. And what I can show you are the skills tied to the course. So I'm thinking that the system looks at it, and it looks at the skills attached to the course, and it knows that, like, to your point, it looks at those skills and it says, hey, these are the ones in demand for that position. So it's doing a lot of slicing and dicing of data. I don't exactly know how it works. I think they may touch on it in the beginning, but there's a bit more to it because you're asking a bit of a deeper question there.
Interesting.
Well, this is very exciting. Exciting. I'm very excited. Joe, I don't know if I've spoken to, when we originally procured, LinkedIn Learning, the two pieces in my mind were this focusing on skills and the development for and promotion of those discrete skills for professionals, right? Because, employee directors, supervisors can use these, but then also for learners, as we're highlighting. But these tools take it to an entirely different, kind of level. And a lot of what you both have shared is just really, it's kind of like beyond a dream come true as it relates to really being able to have their experience equate, to gainful employment and growth, right? In ways in which we are, can really help them. So this has been great thus far.
I think it'd be really good if Joe just walked through his like all the slides he had, because there's some of the questions in the chat were really focused on how do you use this to help students, and he has a lot of good content there for that. But I'm just hoping he has time to get, like, this is all great, but like tying it to the jobs and stuff. But wait till you see what he had for how to tie it to the academic courses.
Yeah, and I'm happy to go where the conversation is going, and making sure that I can even do a short video and attach this as a follow-up too. But to touch on some of the items here, LinkedIn Learning has the content that we have. It pulls skills from LinkedIn Learning profiles, and now we have the ability to say, hey, what's in demand? So we're doing that work of building courses. We're publishing courses constantly, but we're basing it off of market information. What's hot? What are folks applying for? And then what are they not getting? So what are the gaps between where they want to be and where they're at right now? And we're able to fill those skill gaps with courses and content on the LinkedIn Learning platform. So we got that working for us automatically. So you're going to know that the content it's relevant based off of the world's largest professional network. We do have some data that shows that LinkedIn Learning, it helps students get employment after graduating. So they're 11% more likely to have employment upon graduation. And we can run reports for you to look at, hey, what are students studying on LinkedIn Learning before they get a job, so that you can start to see what content might be valuable for other learners as they look for jobs. Of course, this changes over time, and these are things that we can build and report on for you. You just have to request it. And the more that students use LinkedIn Learning, the better that data gets. I still think we're in this phase where we need more learners on the platform to get higher quality data for you, but we can report on that. And I'll try to keep an eye on the chat pod too. Dr. Carson, you're right. I think this content here will help out a lot. So I'm going to have links to resources here, so you don't have to build these things from scratch. But we have content for remediation that can help with prereqs for courses. I've been that student fairly recently where I probably should have known some things before I came to class, and I just needed to brush up on some content. We have soft and hard skill development. And we also have content mapping services. So if you reach out to me and you have some student learner outcomes that are in your syllabus and you know what they are, I'll have a template for you. It's just an Excel file, and you pop those student learner outcomes into the template. We can fill that out for you with content that's relevant to those student learner outcomes. But like Dr. Carson said, we're not going to hit every single student learner outcome. There may be some areas that you've identified that are like I said, prerequisites, or there may be a direct tie-in to our content. Just be mindful. Of course, we don't have math classes on LinkedIn Learning. We have some actually, but we don't have all of the content that you may be looking for. But there's likely content here that's going to make your job easier. So you're not having to do that remediation constantly. So that may even be a big help for you. And we can help map that content for you as well. I won't read each one of these. I'm actually going to show you what these are. But LinkedIn Learning helps you get hands-on. One of the reasons why it's so powerful is that we have some tools for learners to actually engage. So you're not just listening to a video, you're able to engage. We have where you can ask questions to the instructors or to the community. This is going to help students so that before they even come to you with a question, there may be a common question that surfaced to the top, and they don't even have to reach out to anybody else. They'll just have that content available to them. We know that technology changes all the time. So if there's a new update in software and somebody else posts about it in the Q&A, this is a great way for you to have students continue learning on their own so that they can get some powerful classwork done. We have some really great notebook features that I'll show you, and exercise files are my absolute favorite. So I'm going to jump into a course, and I'll do an Adobe course because I hear Adobe is going to be popular on campus. Try to make this nice and big here. And I'll actually pick, I will pick one that I know that I've done a few times, Premiere Pro. I absolutely love video editing. And what this allows me to do is follow along with a professional who has experience on the platform, and I get to play along. So once this loads up, I'm going to hit pause. I want to bring your eyes to this banner here. So here are some of the controls that you have, or tools that come along. There's an overview that's fantastic, and I'll get into that a bit. The Q&A, notebook, and our transcript. The overview is going to show you exercise files that you can use to play along. Sometimes these are printouts, sometimes they're videos, sometimes they're just assets that you can actually use. You have your certificate if you complete the course. This certificate will go to your LinkedIn profile. If you're a student, it goes to your LinkedIn profile. It also brings the skills over for the learner so that you have an accurate inventory of skills for yourself, which pays dividends when you're looking for a job, or you're looking to even look at skills like, hey, I didn't know I had this, or I forget that I had this skill. Let me sharpen this up a little bit. So all this information comes over. You get your course details, you get a nice set of learning objectives that you can use for inspiration for your courses as well, should you want to. And these are the skills that you actually get. And these do tie to your LinkedIn profile so that they go to your profile for you. And that's automated. Once you're done with the course, it does that for you. We'll give you a demonstration of the Q&A. And in the Q&A, you'll notice that, hey, somebody said, hey, this, and what you'll find is maybe there's something with the software that's a little bit different from the way that the learner used it and what the instructor is showing, and they can ask questions about that. It'll even timestamp the video, and it'll say, hey, at this point, I have a question. So you have a nice way to organize these questions. And oftentimes you'll see where the instructor answers, sometimes the community answers. You don't always get answers, but you'll notice that the instructor in this case did reach out and set the story straight here with this question. Oops, I clicked on that. I didn't mean to. For the notebook's powerful because it's actually going to timestamp where you're at. That saves you the trouble of having to go all the way back for that note. For me, I'm really tactile when I go to a project. I just took an instructional design course, and I was taking notes to say, hey, at this point in time in this course, this is what I want to say. This is what I want to plug and play at this point in the video. So help me stay organized and then get right to work as I was working on my own instructional design videos following along with the course.
One thing I throw out there in terms of Q&A, there's sort of a backdoor approach to not having to pay for in-mail costs. If you're not a direct link to someone who's teaching a class, you can put something in Q&A. And you're communicating probably with that instructor, or at least the instructor seeing it, and you're not having to pay that additional fee for in-mails, which are actually pretty expensive through LinkedIn. Not Not saying it's something you need to do all the time, but it's there as an option.
Yeah, being able to talk with the instructors is awesome. And being able to see that conversation that others are having is useful too. With transcripts, I want to point out as somebody who's building a learning program, you may want to know what's being said in the course. So you can search just this video, or you can click here and it'll give you access to the entire course. So if there's a feature that you're looking for, you could say, let's see, I'll just use the word cut. And it searches the entire course for that keyword. So if you know there's a keyword that you're really looking for, it'll search the entire course, or you can just search the entire video if you'd like to. So some powerful tools for you to search for the course and engage with the course. One other area that I'll touch on before I check out the chat pod is sometimes you'll see groups here. So LinkedIn will have groups that tie to this topic. It's just another way to boost your learning here. If you know you want to continually sharpen your skills or engage in a conversation with another group of learners, you can continue to have that conversation with a group here. Sometimes you'll see that there. And I'll go past, make sure I didn't skip anything. We touched on that. And these are what those learning groups look like. You can join them. And these will actually be on your LinkedIn profile, not your LinkedIn Learning. So you can join those groups and continue on with those conversations. For the certificates, just wanted to highlight where those go on a profile. They go on your LinkedIn profile here. You also get skills pulled over to your profile. So I highlight here that it builds your skills inventory. These are skills that students can then have endorsed. And then when they do apply for a job on LinkedIn or share their LinkedIn profile, the potential employer can see how many endorsements you have for a given skill. And this is what recruiters tend to see. Recruiters see the skill match between, so what we have on the left here, this is somebody's profile. And then on the right here, we can see what a recruiter might see. And this is, hey, your applicant's 50% match out of how many applicants you have. So they may see, hey, this person only has 3 out of 10. This is the world we live in. We have applicant tracking systems. So to give students the best foot forward, they can have these on their profile and become a better match. So in this case, just showing you after taking a course, we had a couple of skills come over, and now that student may be a 7 out of 10, and now they're in the top 10%. So you can
one thing I throw out there too is, when I was talking earlier about vocational identity, it's something that not everybody talks about much, but this idea of having a strong enough vocational identity where it allows you to know kind of more who you are and what you're all about and things you're focusing on. If you have a strong vocational identity, when you're going through and picking which courses to learn or in the real world, which activities to do, you do tend to probably find yourself focusing on those kinds of things that glom together and that would translate into this kind of a profile and therefore be more evident to other people. And you're not diffuse in your identity. You're more focused in your identity. And so not only are you probably going to be more satisfied, you're more likely to get hired in that particular area too. I mean, when I would do career counseling, I focus much more on vocational identity than anything else. Than fit to of personality of the job. It's how clear an idea the person has of themselves, and being able to see that list of skills that you have and how it's developing over time is a good mirror on the kind of things you tend to be interested in.
Yeah, and the sooner you can get students involved in this, and I mean, as we grow our careers, we're already established, but when students have this foundation of skills, I think we've all been in that situation where when you're taking classes and you don't inventory what you have. So you don't know what you did you don't know what you have under your belt. So the idea that this can grow with you is a big deal. And I just want to highlight how easy it is for students to find a skill. And let's say that we can train students to recognize some of these skill gaps that they may have. So let's say that they do apply for a job and they noticed in the resume that there's one word that they don't have. Well, you can type that word in to LinkedIn Learning. The LinkedIn Learning search engine not only looks for subjects and software, but it also looks for skills. So students can finish these things in their free time, and then that gets added to their profile, and they can be a bit more confident. And even if it's an area where they don't feel incredibly strong, they can show that, hey, I've done some work in this area, and that initiative can go a long way. Now, one of the challenges that I do here is finding content. We have over 16,000 courses and videos on LinkedIn Learning, so that can be intimidating. I want to show you just a few tricks that I've learned along the way. I use LinkedIn Learning every day, and I do help a lot of clients map content to their own learning programs. So here's some things that I see pop out, and I'll just pick Adobe, for example. Now, what I want to highlight is when you type in a skill or a subject or a software that you're interested in, the first thing that you might see is this, and that can be intimidating. Let me help you with that. And I'm willing to bet Dr. Carson has figured this out. And once you figure these things out, there are these learning filters. It's not like Google where you type something in and you immediately have the best result. You want to shape this just a little bit. So in this example, I have a full course that populated. The things that I'm looking for are the date. I'm looking, of course, at the title here of the course. But some other areas that you want to hit, I recommend just kind of going down the line and taking a peek and just shaping this a bit. In this case, hey, I do want to take a full course.
Yeah, I always start with the full course view first.
Take a look at that first course. One of my favorite areas to look at, instead of going down the line here, I do tend to get a bit excited and I'll look at sort by. So
and learning paths too are a good way to start, because then somebody's already gone through and curated them. Sorry.
No. You're right. The learning paths are awesome. Sort by. Dr. Carson, do you use this where there's best match? There's a view count. View count is going to show you the most popular. So you know what it's vetted by a lot of people. A ton of people are checking this out. So you can go by view count or you can go by newest. When I do software, I tend to peek at newest. I want to know, hey, what is the newest Adobe content that's going to surface to the top? And this one's only a month old.
I'm learning all this stuff. This is good. I haven't been doing this, and yeah, it's smart to do what you're showing. Yeah.
Now, when you're looking at, so what I've noticed is, like, let's say I'll show you a combination of ways that you can. Let's say that you're going to deploy a learning program. It could be for yourself, it could be for somebody else. But if it's for a broader audience, you can actually measure where learners are at right now. And so and what I did there, I did that kind of quick, but I opened in another tab, the admin portal. I'm going to go to skills. And usually what I like to do is before we do a program, we want to know where learners are at. So you probably have a little information about how big your audience is, some key characteristics. So you know that you're going to serve them relevant content. But let's say that I wanted to learn a bit about, hey, where are my learners at with Mac OS? So I'll just do Mac. And then I'm going to apply this and just get an idea where learners are. And I see, hey, I don't have a lot of new learners on the Mac operating system, but I know that Mac is going to be big on campus. So I'm going to just do a little bit of research here. I have the details so I can see really, hey, there's only one. I see the top learner. Now, if this is a faculty or staff, I can say, hey, I see that you've been doing a bit of learning. What was your review of this? Would you endorse this content here? And it can also just surface some popular ideas here too. That works a little bit different if you have a popular topic like diversity, inclusion, and belonging, where now I'm going to analyze the content and I'll say, hey, unconscious bias is by far the most popular content here. Now I'm going to keep that in mind when I go to the search. And if I'm looking to serve up content for others, I may see that top content and I may want to say, look for what's newest in this topic and then serve up that content, because I know a lot of learners have already taken this course. So this new course might be popular. Just one of the ways to inform the way that you approach sharing content.
Yeah, I finished the unconscious bias course yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah.
I took it back at Verizon, actually. I don't know if it's a 1-for-1. I haven't checked out our course yet. But these are some great ways to get our results down a little bit lower. So right now we have over 1,400 courses. You can just keep going. You can say, hey, you know what? I only want beginner level courses, and that's going to whittle it down even further. So now I have quite a few, I have less results. And then you could say, hey, this is the amount of time that I have. And then just be mindful of these, and you should be good to go. Now, I'm getting a lot of questions on how to share content. There's a few different ways. I find that in higher ed, the easiest way to share content is going to be, and I know this is kind of small up top, but you can just grab this URL and you can grab that. I'm sorry, my demo account's kind of being weird, but you can grab this URL and then just pop it into your LMS. And then learners will be brought over to the course. So you can just do it really simple that way. If you want to pull in, let's say that you want to share a course, a video, and you really want to curate the learner experience, maybe even adding in your own video first. Well, you can have access to what we call Curator, where you can create what we call a learning path. And the learning path will allow you to link to any content that you're interested in linking to, and then just kind of having that in a sequential fashion too. So I have an outline of what that looks like too. By the way, this page here is going to be interactive. So I'll share a link to this presentation. You can click this. It'll pull up a content mapping guide for you to walk you through that. I know that time-wise, I want to check in with the chat, but I do have resources for student wellness, helping students increase confidence. We're seeing some trends where students have been on a computer too much and they just need a few boosters here and there to boost their confidence. Creativity, boosting creativity can help a lot of students, especially those students who haven't quite declared what they want to do in college yet, but they may have some, it's almost like an independent study where they can take classes that'll support their class to keep their interest. So boosting creativity can be really powerful. And then these top skills that students need to be successful. These are all pre-curated. You can click on these. And to make your job a little bit easier, I know you don't have time to build these. You can just grab these and go. So hopefully those are useful for you. And then I did share a little bit of a demo there, but to make a long story short here, if you have Curator Access, you're going to have your LinkedIn Learning. You're familiar with the page that I just showed you here, but you'll also have this add button in the top right. And then you'll be able to click add if you want to pull in your own content. So let's say that you want to say, hey, students, check out this video. I want you to look at the 1 minute mark. This is about where I want you to focus at, or really shape the learning experience. It'll just be on the LinkedIn Learning instance that you have at UDC, and you can share that link with students. You get to control who sees it. I think most folks in higher ed use the, I'm going to share with no one, direct link access only if they make their own content on LinkedIn. But you do get reporting that you can share too. And I'm going to make sure I check in the chat here. I'll pop this link in the chat as well. And then I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, I think, and check in. And David popped that his email in to say, hey, if you want Curator Access, email him.
And yes, this is being recorded, so we will upload this to our YouTube channel, as well as the deck from Joe Moore. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me. I was looking at the chat and forgot to pop that in.
And if there are any questions, feel free to go ahead and unmute, or you can type in the chat box.
I just want to add a comment. I want to appreciate Drew. You are really rock star with LinkedIn Learning. I know I watch you all the time on LinkedIn, and I'm really jealous all the time.
Thanks, Padma.
Joe, thank you for bringing this together. We still need to work with you to really leverage LinkedIn for UDC. You know, this year has been just kind of the rollout, and then we need really to dig deep into it. Just want to highlight, because you said that they can take the link and add it to the LMS. we actually did the integration. So within their LMS, within Blackboard, they can go search the content and just post it within Blackboard. Sometimes faculty go to LinkedIn Learning, the platform, and find exactly what they need, and that take that URL and just search within Blackboard, so it will be nicely embedded. That's how I want to do it. And there is a video or webinar David really delivered, I think a month ago or two, on how to embed LinkedIn Learning in Blackboard. So if you are interested to know how it works, David can send you the link for the recorded webinar.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's great to have it right within the platform itself. Pulling in links is really easy, but having it right there in Blackboard is another way to have a shortcut for you. I have one more link that I'll share. I had a question about tutoring, and I did have some content on that as well. I'll share this copy. I'm going to pop it in the chat pod. This is something that you can customize. I put it in PowerPoint format and PDF. Either one might work for you, but that does have some content on tutoring. This is really designed to have content for each student year. So we have first year, second year, third year. And the idea is that if students are able to gradually use LinkedIn Learning a bit, that it'll be that much easier for them to apply for that internship or job when time comes. But there is a little part that I call the tutors always in that you can check out and share that with the tutoring center too.
And Joe, if you don't mind putting your contact information, I know that you do offer consultations that are one-on-one. So for anyone here that is interested in curating or just talking to Joe, he's such a great resource for us about anything that you're interested in. He can go ahead and point you in the right direction.
And if I don't know the answer, I will work to get it for you. That's what I'm good at. I'll pop my, I have what we call, it's called Find Time, and you can see my calendar. So I encourage you, why is control copy not working? I encourage you to just grab time on my calendar and we can chat. Any notes that you put in to the, I'm having trouble with copy and paste. That's weird. But anything that you want to bring into the meeting, just let me know, put it in the notes, and I can do a little research before our call. Hopefully I can get this link to copy and paste. There we go. I know it's a really long link, but it should work good for you. And Dr. Carson, I think you're on mute there.
Oh, yeah, well, that's a long link.
It really is. Hopefully it works.
Wow. It's crazy long.
And I'm trying to keep.
Oh, it's got, so it's like the basic, so your basic URL is at the very top of the top two lines, and everything after that is just a script that gets added. That's wild.
Yeah. Hopefully it works for you.
Well, I mean, I want to try to put together, I think I want to try to put together a LinkedIn Learning course. I just don't know how soon I'm going to be able to get it done because I've got a day job.
I gave you a link to, if you want to be so there's, what you can do is if you want to publish content to LinkedIn Learning, you can publish to UDC's LinkedIn Learning. If you want to apply to be an instructor, there's a vetting process that they go through, and I'm sure that there's a queue that they have currently, but you can apply to be a LinkedIn Learning instructor. And Dr. Carson, I would love to see some content for you on building a vocational identity, you name it. I was inspired by the conversations that we had, and I would imagine a lot of others would be too.
And career interventions. Yeah, I got it. No, yeah. I got encouraged to submit something to.
Yeah, Drew, you should be curator, and when whoever log in from UDC would say Drew recommend.
I don't know. Well, we can talk. We can talk. Yeah. I don't know if I'm necessarily. I've pretty narrow, quirky interests. One thing I have thought about putting together is a course on an idea I've had called city courses, which would be courses about different cities. So that, like, I can imagine a city course on Washington, D.C., but there would be like a part of a whole series of courses available through LinkedIn. Like, what's work like? What's careers like? What is learning like in DC? And then, well, what's it like in Seattle? What's it like in LA? How do you succeed in St. Louis? How do you succeed in Chicago? How do you succeed in Dallas? I think that'd be interesting.
I think, and we also have some really cool data too, to show trends that I think would be fun. And then just to have, my wheels are spinning on that. I think that'd be really cool too.
I think it'd be interesting because you could, the thing I think LinkedIn is maybe missing out on, because it's a closed garden in a lot of ways. And it's owned by Microsoft, which has a culture, even though they're doing a lot of open source stuff. So it's kind of a closed garden history, is they're not necessarily going to be sharing a lot of the inner workings. It's got a lot of secret sauce. But I think a lot of the power of LinkedIn and a lot of the power of LinkedIn Learning is going to be from opening up a lot of that to co-developers. And LinkedIn Learning kind of have to, because you're depending on a community of people to develop the courses and learning content for you.
Yeah, we've got some different ways that we're going to start offering up courses where there's more micro learning, and then the instructors will open that up too. I think we're just very mindful about keeping that level of quality high, and so we're inching our way toward opening up some.
And we might also want to look at HBCU representation among faculty in LinkedIn Learning. Increasing that, or at least getting it up to a reasonable level. Just a thought. I mean, these are all positive things that one could do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, this has been great. I enjoyed the conversation with you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and loved learning from the over 100 courses that you've taken. Thanks for sharing there. Again, all the content's there. I look forward to meeting with anybody. If you do get some time on my calendar, you can go far out too. If it's the holidays and you're busy now, that's okay too. But if you want to meet later in the spring, that's fine too. But just a lot of gratitude, and I'm excited to see what everybody's able to do and accomplish with LinkedIn Learning, the LinkedIn Learning partnership, because it's a partnership.